And logo for Nigeria's 60th anniversary unveiled.
Bill to legalize agency to manage process of crime recovered from public officials gets government's approval.
Federal government assures Nigerian traders affected by stiff business regulation imposed by Ghana of justice.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss Nigeria's food security situation.
All right, a recent report by the Food and Agriculture Organization, that's FAO, indicated that about 7 million Nigerians experienced food shortage between July and August this year. Now, the report also predicts a food crisis in 16 northern states, including the FCT.
Now, according to the FAO, food inflation in Nigeria increased to 16% in the month of August. That's against 15.48% in July this year. Now, these developments and a few others have made Nigerians pay more for essential food items such as bread, cereals, vegetables, yam, and other tubers, fruits, fish, and meat.
Indeed, early this month, President Muhammadu Buhari expressed concern over the sudden increase in the prices of food items, in parts of the country. Now, assuring Nigerians that measures are being put in place to address the situation. Now, concerned persons, including the president himself, insist that the disruption of livelihoods and supply chains by especially COVID-19 pandemic is being aggravated by the activities of middlemen whose penchant for profit at all costs is fueling the current increase in food prices.
Now, other factors such as flooding and insecurity have also been identified as being responsible for food shortage in parts of the country And last week, the National Food Security Council meeting convened by President Buhari threw up a number of issues with respect to the state of food security in the country.
All right, now just to give you an idea of those who attended that meeting, the governors of Kebbi, who of course is the vice chairman, Jigawa, Delta, Ebonyi, Plateau, Lagos, and Taraba. And recently also, experiences in the agricultural sector shaped discussions at that particular meeting.
Now, the directive that the Central Bank of Nigeria should no longer disburse foreign exchange to importers of fertilizer and some food items is among the efforts aimed at changing the narrative to ensure that Nigeria attains food security. Now, recall also that at the heat of the coronavirus pandemic, grains were also released from the nation's strategic reserves as palliatives to help the most vulnerable in the country.
Indeed, and of course, some other efforts targeted at ensuring food security will include the single-digit loans, intervention to farmers, and of course the entire agricultural value chain. There were also provisions of improved seeds and seedlings to farmers, as well as fertilizers. Now, we also had ban on the importation of certain food items, that are locally, produced here in the country. And there were trainings and best practices, among other incentives, that were taken and given to farmers.
Yeah, no question about that, Claire, that the country is embarking on a number of initiatives to ensure the country's food security, and one, of course, of the most recent is part of what you've just indicated. But it is clear that food security is a topical issue right now, and when you look at the key components of food security, then there are issues, of course, that come up for conversation.
Now that you have talked about key components of food security, so we will ask, or you may want to know, what food security it's all about, and what impact will the efforts of the National Food Security Council make on Nigeria's food security targets. We'll have our guests. Remember, Kingsley, we had the vice chairman sometime with the governor of Kebbi State
Yes, a couple of weeks ago.
weeks ago to speak on some of the challenges, that the flood in that part of the country, had brought on to the food production in Kebbi State. On today's program, we will, of course, look at the wider perspective that the National Food Security Council meeting would be looking at. And that's the conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today. I welcome you from wherever you're watching. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program. We're broadcasting as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are right here in our Abuja headquarters studios. Now, in the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments. This newspaper review and, of course, business. In the meantime, let's join Chimobi Walter Naji for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Chimobi.
Hello, good morning, Kingsley and Claire. It's good to see you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria, and here is the morning news. The theme and logo for Nigeria's 60th anniversary celebration has been unveiled. President Muhammadu Buhari performed the ceremony to formally kickstart a series of activities commemorating the nation's attainment of the Diamond Age. The event preceded the weekly meeting of the Federal Executive Council.
I am informed that the selected option depicts our togetherness, a country of over 200 million people whose natural talent, grit, and passion glitter like the precious diamond we are. This, to me, is a special appreciation to our most precious asset.
And the federal government is resolved to establish a new agency that will be saddled with the responsibility of managing more effectively the proceeds of crime recovered from those found to have abused trust. Now, this followed the approval by the Federal Executive Council, a bill seeking to provide a legal and institutional framework for the agency aimed at taking the anti-corruption war to the next level of transparency and accountability.
What happens before now is the proceeds of crime are scattered all over and mostly in the hands of different and multiple agencies of government, inclusive of the police, the DSS, EFCC, ICPC. So what this law now seeks to do is to have in place an agency of government that is exclusively responsible for anything proceeds of crime.
Now, the world is moving towards digital identification of citizens, and some countries have already turned the corner well. The cheering news is that Nigeria is also on its way to achieving equitable distribution of resources using the digital identity database. Now, this is a major takeaway from a media briefing in commemoration of this year's National Identity Day.
It's a social service to get the passport, a social service to get the driver's license, a social service to also get a role for election. So all these services are now being tied to the need. In Nigeria, we want to move fast, and in the next 2, 3, maximum 5 years.
And despite the seeming delay in resolving the concerns of Nigerian traders regarding some stiff business regulations imposed by Ghanaian authorities, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the federal government will ensure that affected Nigerians get justice. In a statement, the Vice President on Tuesday, during a meeting with representatives of the Nigerian community in Ghana, assures Nigerians living in the West African nation, including the locking of hundreds of Nigerian-owned shops in Ghana, that the challenges will be addressed. The statement also says that Vice President Osinbajo strongly affirmed the commitment of the federal government to deal with issues, assuring them of justice and stressing that there has been direct communications between President Muhammadu Buhari and President Akufo-Addo of Ghana, making formal complaints to him, and that conversation has been going on. The Vice President, however, urged all affected traders through their associations and leaders to submit a more detailed letter containing the number of affected shops and other relevant information that would enable the Nigerian government to follow up effectively via Ghanaian authorities. In the meantime, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has taken a pre-commissioning tour of the Water Smith Flow Station and Modular Refinery in Ohajegbema local government area of Imo State.
That from just exporting crude, Watersmith is adding value to crude, is producing many other, byproducts which will be consumed by Nigerians. But don't forget the job creation and the fact that they are going to transform the entire landscape of this local government.
So it's something federal government must appreciate, and then Nigerians indeed should also appreciate.
All right, and Nigeria confirms 126 new cases of COVID-19 in the country as at 16th of September 2020. FCT has 37, Lagos has 27, Plateau 16, Kaduna has 9, Abia has 7, while Gombe has 6. Others are Ondo with 6, Imo 5, Delta 2, Ekiti has 2, while Kwara also recorded 2 cases. Other states also recorded like Oyo with 2 cases, Bauchi 1, Kano 1, Katsina 1, Ogun 1. Yobe also recorded 1 case. The total confirmed cases stands at 56,604, with discharged persons recorded at 47,872. We also have unfortunate 1,091 deaths recorded. And that's the morning news. The program continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break. To stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. Time to take a look at business news. In it, CBN introduces its financing initiative to support the federal government's economic sustainability programs. For that, let's join our business desk.
Nigeria needs more than double the proportion of bank loan it makes to the agricultural sector to 10% within the next 4 years to boost food production in Africa's biggest economy. Its central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, said President Buhari had given approval for CBN to set up infrastructure company and also render adequate support for the agri sector through increased lending by commercial banks. He said the bank is also introducing financing initiative to support the federal government's economic sustainability program to fast-track the deployment of 300,000 homes in the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, and to create up to 1.5 million jobs in 5 years.
Between the parallel and the official exchange rate over the past month has narrowed somewhat significantly due to some of the measures taken by the CBN to curb illegal FX transactions in the country. With the decline in our foreign exchange earnings and subsequent adjustment in the value of the naira to the dollar, the CBN has continued to implement a demand management framework that is designed to support improved production of items that can be produced in Nigeria and further conservation of our external reserves.
Let's now go to the capital market for latest figures on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Many thanks, Chimobi, for the business package. Newspaper Review is next.
All right, welcome back. Time now to take a look at the newspapers, of course, what they're saying on their front pages. And to review the papers today, we have Bayo Atoebe, as usual. Bayo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
Right, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. So I have the Punch newspaper, and you have the Nation, and then also the editorial coming from the Nigerian Pilot. Above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, 42 million Nigerians now have identity numbers, and that's according to NIMSI, with details at page 19. CBN demands details of 12 top Nigerian businessmen and others' domiciliary accounts. Adebutu, family members, Better Nigeria co-founder, and foreign nationals on list. Details on page 25. Sage panel accuses Malami of aborting high-profile cases. That's on page 9. And then you have an earpiece there. Edo decides 2020. NLC and Danjuma and others reaffirm support for Obaseki. That's on page 12. NLC, Danjuma and others reaffirm support for Obaseki. CNPP and CSO condemn alleged vote buying ahead of poll. Take bribe and be sacked. NSCDC tells poll personnel, that stands for NSCDC, a civil defense. Late story comes with a kicker. Electricity tariff and fuel price hikes. TUC tackles Ngige, and NLC issues 2-week ultimatum to the federal government. With 3 riders, Congress mobilizes 79 civil society groups for September 23rd protest. NLC plans nationwide protests starting from September 28th. And Trade Union Congress letter to Buhari misplaced, says federal government. And you see the photographs there of protesters against the increase in the pump price of petrol as well as electricity tariff. 42 ambassadors await postings 96 days after Senate confirmation. Page 11. Kaduna trains agencies heads to expose fraud and misconduct. And police disrupt Plateau teachers' protest against unpaid salaries. That's page 11. Powerful figures in government protecting bandits. That's attributed to Northern Coalition. That's on page 11. My brother's kidnappers collected 5 million naira before we found his body. That's according to the brother of the slain DSS officer. That incident took place in Katsina. U.S. reviews visa ban as federal government meets 90% requirement. That's on page 7. Clear.
All right, Kingsley, let me also take up with the picture story at the front page of the Nation. And again, is this unveiling of the 60th birthday, so to speak, of Nigeria. And there you see the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and the President, Muhammad Buhari, of course, unveiling the logo for the independence anniversary at the presidential villa yesterday. Of course, that will tee off the almost a year-long celebration of activities, which is said might come or will culminate September 30 next year. Okay, that's a whole lot of celebration. Okay, just down below that picture story, petrol, electricity prices, labor issues ultimatum, and federal government to examine requests, says Ngige. It's a rider to that story. And there's a story just a little below the nameplate on the left column. That should be your right. PSC AC PACAC alleges plot to scrap EFCC. Senate reps should reject bill, says Sage. And of course, that's the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption yesterday. We will forge a more united Nigeria at 60. 12-month activities begin. That's the story to the picture story, of course, I said earlier on. And just above the nameplate, castration for rapists in Kaduna, El-Rufai signs bill. Details of that on page 5. NNPC begins refineries rehabilitation for Trackord plant ready by 2023. Details of that on page 25. Now, 30 sectors showed negative growth in half year. Plus, Turkey-bound Tramadol intercepted at Abuja airport. Details of that on pages 25 and page 8. Bayo, quickly.
Well, let's start with the issue that came up 2 days ago the Nigerian Labour Congress has joined the Trade Union Congress in giving the federal government ultimatum to reverse the recent increase in petrol pump price as well as electricity tariff. The TUC gave a 7-day ultimatum, and at the expiration on September 23rd, they intend to call off a nationwide strike. Similarly, the Nigerian Labour Congress, after having a central working committee meeting yesterday, gave an ultimatum up to September 28 for a deadline, and their demand is that the recent increase in pump price as well as electricity tariff should be reversed accordingly. However, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, has observed that the 7 days ultimatum given by the TUC was invalid in the sense that rather than address it to the minister who is in charge of labor as required by labor laws and ILO rules, they addressed it to Mr. President. He says that in that notwithstanding, the Federal Executive Council yesterday also looked at what has been described as occupational safety health policy for 2020. This was an amendment of a law that has been in existence since 2006. With that policy, the intent is to make for safety for health workers at their workplaces. The policy derived from Section 17 sub 3C of the 1999 Constitution, as well as the ILO Convention of 155. The policy replaces the former that was in 2006. Meanwhile, government will encourage the establishment of more modular refineries as part of the measures to help crash petrol pump price. Minister of Information stated this at Ibigwe in Imo State yesterday when he and members of the National Assembly, as well as the governor of Imo State, inspected Walter Smith Modular Refinery and Petrochemical Company. The refinery is due for commission next month. And the interesting thing is that Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board has 30% stake. It is to refine 5,000 barrels of crude oil per day, and gradually it will graduate to 25,000 and subsequently to 50,000 per day at the final stage. Governor Hope Uzodimma and members of the National Assembly were conducted round, and the Minister of Information indicated that there are several such modular refineries going on at various stages of completion. And when this is attained, they will, in a whole, support the idea of crashing the pump price of petrol. All things being equal, a date of October 14th have been set when trucks will load products from the refinery. Let's go to the 60 years anniversary. 60 years in the life of a nation, that is a diamond anniversary. And at the Federal Executive Council yesterday, President Muhammadu Buhari lodged the theme of the anniversary as well as the logo. The theme is togetherness, and this is said that it is the aspiration of our founding fathers to rise above differences in faith, tribe, and tongue to fight for independence. And when it comes to the logo, you have a neatly encrusted diamond on the map of Nigeria. And if you look around the map of Nigeria, it is set in two greens, pear green as well as park green. And they symbolize Nigeria's warmth, love, value of human capital, and the riches in our fatherland. 60 years is worth pomp and pageantry, but COVID-19 has restrained everybody, so it's going to be low-key, in spite of the fact that it will extend up to October 2021. Hashtag, well, many of our users are used to hashtag these days. So you have hashtag Nigeria at 60 and hashtag 60 together will trend. The theme is quite instructive in the sense that the essence of unity in our nation has been a challenge for the nation for a long time. You'll recall that even in the first national anthem, it says specifically, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. We have always been struggling to find that brotherhood. And if you come to the second national anthem, the current one, it says, to serve with heart and mind one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Unity is something we've been struggling to find, and the concern is politicians who always have on those weak links about religion, about ethnicity, to divide us, and also region. We have traversed the region since the advent of the creation of states, 12 states, but still, we still have Nigerians that think in the context of regions, and that has been our challenge and the bane of our unity.
All right, the editorial is from the Nigerian Pilot, and it's at page 3. It says, Edo election must be free, fair, and credible. In part, the editorial worries, it says, can the deployment of security officers, including the military, police, civil defense, DSS, and etc., guarantee free and fair elections on Saturday? Says similar deployments were done in the past in Ekiti and Osun states, but most, if not all, post-election reports indicted security agencies as well as electoral officers, as the polls were characterized by vote buying and sundry malpractices allegedly aided by security agencies. The editorial advises that security agencies as well as INEC in Saturday's elections must be neutral.
Well, the people of Edo State on Saturday, September 19, will choose their next governor. All of us are aware about the heightened atmosphere in Edo State. In fact, the first to call attention to the tension that had been generated was the Omar Obanedo Oba Eware II. And he called the major protagonists and cautioned them about having talks that will disrupt the peace in Edo. And he emphasized specifically, Edo has a rich history of peace, and they don't want anything that will disrupt the peace. However, the editorial is happening on the essence and the parameters for having a free, fair election. One of the things the editorial has expressed concern about is the population of 31,000 of policemen, strongmen that will be in Edo State. They are to man the 18 local governments, 192 132 areas, and 2,627 polling units. The whole idea is that when there is police presence, thugs who usually come and take over the atmosphere will be restrained. However, the presence of security should not be a factor that should scare voters to come out and vote. But all said, the emphasis should be on politicians who always find a means of instigating, means of undermining free and fair elections.
I have no doubts, indeed, that it will turn out fine. Everything will turn out fine. The players in that field would really heed to the appeals of the traditional ruler. I'm positive and I'm optimistic it will be fine. All right, Bayo, thank you once again. We look forward to having you again tomorrow, Friday. All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Let's take a quick short break, and when we come back, we'll start off with our conversation. All right, once again, I can assure you today's conversation promises to be very exciting, and in a short while you will know why I said that. But let's begin with the background report that has been put together by our correspondent Aisha Uba Ali. Once again, we're looking at food security in Nigeria amidst COVID-19 pandemic.
Report from Food and Agricultural Organization says about 7 million Nigerians experienced food shortage between June and August this year. It also says 16 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory may face food and nutrition crisis. Among these states that have been identified include Adamawa, Borno, Benue, Yobe, Taraba, Gombe, Katsina, Jigawa, Bauchi, Kano, Kaduna, Plateau, Sokoto, Kebbi, Niger, and Zamfara states. The increase in inflation rate is one among other impacts of COVID-19 on the economy. Food inflation and the hike in food items are a source of worry for many, with Nigeria's inflation rate hitting 13.22%, highest since March. Food inflation has also increased to 16% in August as against 15.48% in July. Nigerians are dealing with increase in prices of essential food items such as fruits, fish, cereals, tubers, vegetables, meat, among others. Factors such as flood and insecurity situation have also been attributed to the cause of food shortage in the country.
It's like we're sitting on top of wood and we think it's a wood. We don't know that it's money. That let us go to farm. So that number one, you make money from there. Then number two, you can feed yourself. This is my advice to Nigeria.
However, among concerned persons is President Muhammadu Buhari, who presided over the recent national security meeting where food security took center stage as various issues concerning ensuring food security were deliberated on, as well as how to address them. Government has assured Nigerians that the situation is transient. Efforts are being made to ameliorate the situation. What can be done to address food security challenges in Nigeria? What programs will be adopted to address the situation? Guest on Good Morning Nigeria today will be throwing light on these and more questions shortly.
Many thanks, Aisha Ubali, for that background. Joining us now to discuss these issues in further detail, we'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Sabo Nanunu. Honorable Minister, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome Dr. Tunde Arosonye. He is the National Coordinator of Zero Hunger Commodity Farmers of Nigeria. Dr. Arosonye, pleasure to have you on the program.
It's my pleasure, sir. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's take you to Jos, and joining us via Skype is the Executive Governor of Plateau State and Chairman Northern Governors Forum, Dr. Simon Bako Lalong. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us all the way from Jos.
Thank you very much, Kingsley.
We also want to introduce one of our guests that has joined us from our Enugu Network Center. And Moses Nome is Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources, Ebonyi State. Honorable Commissioner, thank you for joining us.
Very much. Good morning, Nigerian.
All right, Casey.
All right. While the Skype connection is still stable, we might as well begin the conversation with His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, Right Honorable Simon Lalong. Your Excellency, you were one of those who attended the recent National Food Security Council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari. In a sense, tell us, was that a routine meeting or it was, shall we say, an extraordinary meeting necessitated by an emerging situation in the country? And if so, what were the highlights of your resolutions?
Thank you very much, Kingsley, and let me also welcome the Honorable Minister and all those that are here for the discussions. Yes, we had a meeting as members as members of the council, the food security. For a while, we had not had the meeting. I'm sure the last time we had that meeting was last year. But the recent happenings in the country, as the crisis and also the issue of the recent flood in some parts of the country, necessitated our convening an emergency meeting. It was very timely too, because I knew that the president was worried about the situation and quickly convened a meeting of the Security Council, of the Food Security Council. So we met, and there were representatives of the various zones and ably represented by the governors, and also the Jigawa governor, who represented the input aspect of agriculture. That's those in charge of fertilizer. The security were there, represented by the National Security Advisor. The Minister of Agri was there. Finance was also there. Humanitarian, the Minister for Humanitarian Development, Sadia, was also there, made a presentation. So at the meeting, the President made a brief remark, and after that, we got presentation from the Minister of Agriculture. We also got presentation from the CBN in respect to funding. And then the Humanitarian Affairs also made a presentation. And of course, the governors, the 6 governors now made presentation to present the challenges in their zones and also the way forward for Mr. President. Unfortunately, I will say that we were not able to capture all the presentations because there were a lot of the MDAs that were there. The custom was there, immigration was, custom was there, the Bank of Industry was also there, Bank of Agriculture was there, internal affairs that were also supposed to contribute in respect to internal security was there. But because the time was short, what we did was to take the presentations after the comment of Mr. President. Now, because of the issues that were raised, we now agreed that we are going to convene a technical session specifically meant for general discussions on the issue of food security in Nigeria. So that was where we stopped. And at this state point, we are now arranging a very important meeting to discuss and at a technical session on what to do to again look at the general views about it and then see solutions to it.
Okay, let me also stay with you, Your Excellency. The food security at that meeting, we understand, was broken down into 4 dimensions, including availability of food, the access to, purchasing of food and utilization, and of course, the stability of all 3. Which of these dimensions would you say we are most vulnerable?
Well, I think all of them are very important because, first of all, when you talk about food security, you must agree that you must try to, first of all, address the insecurity, the current insecurity that is going on. And of course, flood, which is a natural disaster, you can't control, you can't wait for it, you can't wait or you determine when it will come. So special attention must be made to address the issue of insecurity and also flood. But generally too, that was why there was presentation from the central bank, I said so, presentation from the Minister of Agriculture as to what can we do to address the immediate challenges that we have. So those were some of the issues, and all these things will also require financing. So the CBN was there, Minister of Finance made presentations, and these are some of the areas I mentioned very importantly to address the flood that was ravaging part of the north, and also to look at means of sustaining the challenges.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. We're going to have to pause you, and we'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's now come back to our Abuja studios and bring in the Honorable Minister of Agricultural and Rural Development, Mohammed Sabo Nanono. Honorable Minister, of course, the Governor of Plateau, who was at that meeting, already indicated that you made a presentation. In summary, while also highlighting what your presentation was all about, is Nigeria's food security situation under threat? And if so, what are the factors?
Well, there has been a lot going on in the papers and in the social media and even from international organizations talking of an imminent hunger. I don't know what is the definition of hunger. People sometimes just lose this word very loosely. If you are talking of real hunger, you should remember that even if you have the money, you don't have the food to buy. That's what was happening in India, 1975, and that's what happened in Ethiopia around 1984. You have the money, you can't even buy the food because it wasn't there. It's not the situation that we are confronting in this country. What we have the food, people have no money to buy the food. And ask me why. Simple. Because there's a large army of unemployed people. The breakdown of the synergy between agriculture and the industrial sector brought about this. And this problem that was started 30, 40 years ago. When we were just sitting ducks, our agro-allied industries collapsed. We lost 145 textile mills. And they were the engine of employing youth, apart from other agro-allied like oil milling, tanning factories, and others. And that was largely due to our wrong industrial policies. It was not something that happened. It's an accumulated problem that is coming on now. And I can tell you, if we are going to come on our feet, you have to create that strong synergy between the agricultural sector and the industrial sector, so that you can bring in this large army of unemployed youth into gainful employment, where they can be able to buy food, health, and educate their children. Let me demonstrate to you. Take the textile industry. From planting cotton, to ginning of cotton, to spinning, to buffing, to dyeing and printing, to packaging. It's a vertical value chain. You are creating jobs at every level. And then you take the horizontal value chain, from ginning to seed processing, to oil extraction, and to livestock feed. You are also creating employment in that. But what is now? We have lost that over the years. It's not a problem that started today. I remember we lost our bearing around 1984, 1985, when we had a lot of oil money coming in, and people were just sitting ducks importing everything at ease because they don't want work, and because the government was not forced to make investment in this basic infrastructure that will improve our industrialization process. So it's not something that started today. People should reflect back. And the other thing is, we set up some of our food industries, particularly take the flour milling industries. They were set up with farmers in Mexico, United States, and Canada, whose average cost per unit is so low, and whose were being subsidized by their own government, to the extent that when you have these large flour mills in the country, an average Nigerian farmer cannot produce wheat to sell it at a profitable level to these major flour milling plants because of huge overhead costs. What India did and Pakistan was a backyard industry, 5 tons, 10 tons. And then any farmer can bring in on his donkeys or on cart and sell it, make money, and they will also make money. And we make the mistake here. I remember 1985 or thereabout, during the Babangida administration, when they just temporarily stopped the importation of wheat. In Kadawa, Kano alone, we produced 484,000 tons of wheat. But you know the pressure was too much, because these people, millers, were also producers of wheat in their own country. They were also the shipping agents. Now, a lot of pressure was placed on the government saying that Nigerian wheat was not good for bread. And we had to open our doors. Up to today, we are suffering from that problem. And so in a nutshell, we cannot call Nigeria a hungry country, but we have poverty. And to arrest this poverty, you have to create that strong synergy between the agricultural sector and the industrial sector. And I'm happy to note a lot of investment from the private sector is now going on.
So your primary thesis, if I may put it that way, and I believe therefore part of your presentation, was to look at 2 aspects of the quadrant in food security. Availability and access.
Yes.
Access, the synonym for it is also affordability.
Yes.
You are saying, Honorable Minister, that food is available, but it is not affordable on account of unemployment.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
we'll take it from there with the other guests.
Yes, I want to bring in Dr. Tunde Arusanyi here. You've listened to him. We have targets. We have the comprehensive African that's CAP target for ending hunger by 2025. That's Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program. And we have the SDGs target of also ending hunger and all forms of malnutrition by 2030. How, I don't want to use bad, how good are we?
With due respect to the Honorable Minister, some of his points I can key into it, but there are some areas where I will want to differ a bit. Because when food is available but not affordable, we can still agree that there is some element of hunger. And if you look at the earning capacity, in normal economics, when there's inflation, there must be liquidity and power to purchase. But when there's inflation and then there is no capacity to purchase, it means something fundamentally is wrong in the economy. So by extent, we had Vision 2020, this is 2020, and I would still agree that more than 40% of our population can still not afford 3 standard meals per day. And despite several efforts and intervention of government, he has made an elaborate analysis with historical perspective. Yes, he's a farmer. He's been in, so he knows to an extent what production, primary and secondary, is all about. But there have been a lot of leakages in our programs. For example, now we're speaking about the African program and then the United Nations project, all to address hunger. But at implementation, there are leakages. And so because of these leakages and then emerging challenges, we are not yet there.
Do we have enough food? He says we have enough food. But from your perspective, do we even have enough food before we talk about the purchasing power, the affordability?
I don't want to agree that we have enough food presently. If we have had enough food, it's on record that even the federal government borrowed from ECOWAS, borrowed grains over 5,000 metric tons. So if we have had enough food, there wouldn't have been any need for the country to borrow. And then also, if we have had enough food, then economic analysis. So if you have supply, then and demand, if your supply can match demand, it means there will be price stability. But if supply cannot match demand, then of course the price will be soaring. So if presently a bag of rice is about 27,000, 28,000, it means there's a gap between supply and demand.
Dr. Arosanye, thanks. Honorable Mr.
Let me correct him. We didn't borrow food from the ECOWAS. It was part of the process that they give to every country. And Nigeria is the biggest contributor to the ECOWAS food system. So it was, we didn't borrow. Because some people were taking that we borrowed food. No. And in fact, we don't need their food. And take it from me. So we didn't borrow. Yes, you can go with your question.
Yeah, well, the question then would be, following from the economic analysis that Tunde just provided, and which of course should be fairly obvious. You say, Honorable Minister, that food is available, but affordability is a challenge. So if the law of demand and supply were to play out, if the food, if we had the food there, then why doesn't the government trigger increased supply in the market so that the prices will go down? But when we read the inflationary figures published regularly now by the National Bureau of Statistics, we see decline. We see decline in the general inflation and more particularly a steep rise in the cost of food items. What is at play?
Let me tell you, before COVID, we don't have much of this problem. Of course, COVID brought a lot of challenges, even in the logistics of movement of food from one area to another. It was a big challenge. And also it created a panic buying, and automatically prices of most foodstuff went up. Before I came to this meeting now, I checked the prices of the major commodities, rice in particular. The penny rice that was being bought at about 18, even 19,000 per bag. I'm a farmer. I was selling at 14,000. Then one of my managers, happens to be my second child, said, Baba, you are fool. They are coming to the farm and offering me 17,000. We have to take it. I resisted for a bit, but I had to give up. But today, Fedi rice is between 12,000 to 13,000. It's coming down.
What, at the market?
At the market, yes.
Local market?
Paddy rice, okay. Not the milled rice,
okay.
paddy rice.
Paddy rice, okay.
And the milled rice is ranging between 15,000 to 18,000 as of today. I'm checking, you know, Kano is the barometer of all these commodities. That's where from where you gauge the price. Then
Kano is the barometer, Abuja isn't?
Oh, yes.
And Lagos isn't?
Kano is the barometer of rice, of all these grains and cereals. The Wano market is the largest grain market in Africa and is the food security spot. It's one of the food security spots in the world. So when you want, you check the prices from there. Maize, which was selling at between up to 25,000, old stock. As of today, it is selling between 15,000 to 18,000. And it will even come down in the next 1 to 1.5 months.
What explains this price decline that you just mentioned?
Simple. The new rice is coming. The new maize is also coming into the market.
From the floods?
From harvest. New harvest for rice and new harvest for maize is coming now on board into the market.
Tunde.
I'm coming. I have not finished.
We want you to respond to this so that you also
there are others. Let me then he can respond.
Yes, okay.
Sorghum is now at 17,000 from 20,000. Millet, which was ranging up to 24,000, is now between 10 to 12,000. So, and the other thing I want you to note, before the policy on rice, that was about 3-4 years ago, Nigeria was nowhere in the production of rice. We are now number 13 in the world. Check the FAO. They were the ones that said it. It's not me that is saying it. That is we are number 1 now in Africa. And the good news is, if we maintain this policy, in the next 5-6 years, we may be number 4. Because we would have all the facilities, anything that we can think of producing rice in this country. 4 states, Taraba, Kwara, Jigawa, Kebbi, can produce the rice that we will consume in this country. It's enough. The rest we can just export. I'm telling you this.
Honourable Minister,
yeah.
Sorry, please. These prices you just mentioned, are
yes.
they wholesale prices or are they retail prices?
Wholesale prices.
We needed to clarify
wholesale,
that.
Yes, wholesale prices.
So by the time it gets to the market...
Let me tell you, madam, every morning I check with major dealers of this commodity to make sure what the situation was. About a week ago or 2 weeks ago, milled rice was selling at about 25,000. Some were even quoting 30,000.
But you know, Honourable Minister, thank you very much. The other factor in food security has to do with stability.
Yes.
So you've mentioned all these prices now. A while ago, the prices were up. Now the prices are coming down. We'll return to you and indeed the other guests to talk about the aspects of stability, particularly in terms of supplies and prices. Let's bring in the Honourable Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources of Ebonyi State, who is joining us from our Enugu Network Center. That's Moses Nome. Mr. Nome, of course, you've listened to the other guests who are here with us in the studios. As Commissioner for Agric in Ebonyi, which is also a major rice producer, at least in the southeastern part of the country, what's your reading of the food security situation in the country?
I share some view with the last speaker that there's availability of food in Nigeria. What is on ground is that because of the new policy on agriculture that we no longer import rice to Nigeria, the farmers are now appreciating their sufferings in the farm. And that is why you are talking about a little shift from the price we are buying before now. But what I think is that the availability of this food is more important than the price. This is because this loan that is being given out by the federal government through CBN is a loan that must be paid. If a farmer goes to the farm without having enough resource to go back, then there'll be there'll be challenge along the line. But once there is food and the price appreciates, a farmer can go to the farmer happily, return back to the market, sell the product, and have savings to go back to the farm. And that is more important. In Ebonyi State, where I believe that enough rice is produced, because we have enough processing plants in Ebonyi State, through the instrumentality of the governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer David Nwezumai, we have enough food, especially this year. At the beginning of this year, he charged us to go to the farm and ensure that we must increase the production of our agricultural product by 500%. And we started it before COVID came in. At the time COVID came in, we were busy allocating lands to political office holders, which it is compulsory for every Ebonyian who gets any political appointee to be a farmer and to have at least 5 hectares of land as his own, either in rice production, cassava production, or maize production, or even yam production, because we produce the fattest yam in Nigeria. It is my belief that the inflation is not only in food commodity, it is everywhere. And the farmers cannot be pressurized to bring down the price of his commodity. Whereas our children go to the same school with every other set of people in the country. So we have the same labor market. Our children go to the same school with the children of other people. So the price cannot be the issue now. The issue is that there is enough food in Nigeria. And that is where I want to anchor my argument.
Okay, let me still stay with you. If you say there is enough food, put it into context. Is it because Ebonyi State is, should I say, self-sufficient in rice production? Rice is not just, the only food. When you talk about food grains, there are quite a number of other, grains. So, in totality, is that what you're saying, or are we just okay with rice?
Instead, we don't only produce rice. We produce yam, we produce cucumber in enough quantity, we produce tomatoes, we produce beans, we produce bambra nut. These are commodities we produce in Ebonyi State. And the charge from the Ebonyi State governor is that all sectors, all the value chain, must move at the same pace. And that's where we are now. But I don't subscribe to the fact that our commodity, the agricultural commodity, should go down. Whereas other things should go up. That is my argument. That's my argument. The governor said in Ebonyi State, agricultural product must increase by 500%. And that's what we are battling with to get to his target. And by so doing, we have enough food to supply our state and the neighboring state. For instance, the fertilizer we produce in Ebonyi, we have enough to supply to Ebonyi State and the neighboring states. The rice is there, the yam is there. We are battling with processing it and going into industrialization of all these products. And this is what we are targeting. But for anybody to say that the food commodity should go down, then means the farmers will be discouraged if you don't make enough, because we are talking about agro-business in the Ebonyi State, where we don't only produce for the one we eat, but for the one we eat and sell and make money. That is what we are talking about in Ebonyi State.
Okay,
Claire, this is interesting from Moses Norman, who of course is a member of the National Council on Agriculture. I would like the governor of Plateau to also let us have his own views on this. Your Excellency, Governor Lalong of Plateau, still with us via Skype. You can see him right there on the screen. You're listening to the comments that food is available, but not readily available, as the Honorable Minister of Agriculture says, because of unemployment, which is attributed to poverty rather than hunger. What is your own reading of the situation based, I would assume, on the intelligence that you gather from the field? What do we know? Is there a dichotomy between, shall we say, therefore, urban access to food and rural access to food?
Precisely.
Let me thank you very much. I also listened to the Honorable Minister and the gentleman contributing. And first of all, I told you that why did we call someone the meeting? Because we were anticipating a problem. And a problem because, especially for me as chairman of Northern Governors Forum, in the North where we are mostly agrarian, we are all concentrating on agriculture. Now, if you look at it in the last 1 or 2 years, a large portion of the North is ravaged by insecurity. You go to the Northeast, you go to the Northwest, and even within the North Central, banditry, kidnapping, and all. So you wouldn't expect that there will be bumper harvest. And secondly, as we are all managing with the crisis, COVID-19 came in. And as we are managing the COVID-19, together with the crisis, the inflation in prices. So it was a matter of concern. And when we now got knocked down recently by flood in some parts of the North. And if you have this kind of things, then you of course get into a stage where you are also at the panic. And that was why the president summoned the meeting, and we had the discussions. Now, even if the food is available, what we are thinking that in the next few months or in the next few years, we are likely not only to have prices, but we may not have the food or even talk about the money to buy the food if all the issues are not well addressed. Because recently, as we are moving into COVID-19, we are also getting into a reserve. We are also moving food from reserve to address some of the palliatives that we are talking. To address some of the palliatives for those who are affected, and in some of the cases, even today, it's becoming very, very difficult. I'm putting this as a reality and then the matter of concern, because in some places where you are supposed to get palliatives to produce rice, as Ebony is saying, to produce yams and this, we're having difficulties. We're having difficulties. So in order to address these issues, we consider and look at the policies. I think the function of the Food Security Council is to look at some of the policies that will address the future. So even assuming we have now, we are very sure that we may not have if all these issues are not taken care of. So I would also want to advise from the Honorable Minister that if we really have, then we have to look at the economy of pricing too, of pricing, because you have and you don't have, you cannot afford. It's going to be really a problem. And then a lot of issues like he mentioned. How do we take our youth? We look at those things, and we also look at opportunity, because if you cannot move away from the issues of restiveness. And so if you are addressing security, you will find places of getting people employed. And the only way, the biggest way I see now, especially it may be from the north and other places, is to move the youth into agriculture. Just like we are discussing that, we are also mentioning the issue of Empower, we are mentioning the issue of even the 74,000 youth that are going to be employed. So let us look at agriculture. If it's going to take off half of those people, it will go a long way in not only increasing food production, but also revenue of the nation, the revenue of the nation. So I say it that we are also I'm very, very, because we have sufficient food, but some of these factors are there. These factors are there. We have not addressed fully the issue of insecurity. Yes, federal government is doing their best. Now that we have agro rangers, now that we have a lot of concentration as addressed by the military, by the National Security Advisor, in respect to addressing some of these, some of the issues. We are also having hope that the technology, the emphasis on technology, will also make us improve and expand on some of the things we're doing. Diversification, which has taken the front line when this government came into force, is what we are also going to continue to encourage, because diversification, we're all relying on oil. We got spoiled, I will to use the word, we got spoiled with the issue of the oil. Today the oil is not there. So agriculture is the main thing. And if agriculture is the main thing, what we try to do at the Food and Security Council is to encourage the states to move into agriculture. Even states that were all relying on oil, today are also moving into agriculture. So with the hope of addressing the food insecurity. And again, post-harvest loss. All these issues put together and more are things that we must focus on. So I will not say that we have enough, but that enough for me is not enough.
Your Excellency, since we're dealing with, of course, like I said, the first aspect of in the dimension of food security, which is availability, and we've all aired our views about whether or not we have enough. Now, to the actionable measures that the President enumerated during the course of your meeting was to increase hectares under cultivation and, of course, to improve yield per hectare. The first phase of the stimulus plan, part of the 2.3 trillion naira, was to cultivate new farmlands in every part of the state, about between 20,000 to 100,000. What is the state of that plan at the moment?
That is the aspect that I'm very happy what the Ministry of Agriculture is doing. And let me say, for instance, in my state, when we saw the effect of COVID, we now move into especially expansion in agriculture. In one of the farms that was sold out in my state, that's the biggest farm, I had to go back to concentrate to buy back this farm. The brewery agricultural farm, that's what we call it, the bag farms, is the biggest farm in the state. I brought back this biggest farm back to the state, and what we are doing now is to see the possibility of the land clearance. I'm very happy with the Ministry of Agriculture bringing back NALDA, back NALDA, and the emphasis on NALDA, again on NALDA. So some of these issues that we had left because of the challenges that we have, the ministry is now bringing them back. We were all running away from issue of some of the effects of pastoral conflict. But today we have the pilot scheme, we have the pilot states that are even going to address the issue of ranching. Maybe very soon we'll do away with the conflict between herders and farmers. So with policies like this, we must need a drive, and that drive must be as soon as possible and with vigor. Otherwise, natural disasters will also come. We will not anticipate, but we must be ready for them. There must be flooding here and there. Yet just yesterday we were discussing the issues about water. I was very happy when they mentioned that they are going to bring the water bill, but people were running against it. We had to call the Honorable Minister of Water Resources to explain to us what was in the water bill that people were running away from, and then the danger of the water bill. But after a brief explanation, we realized that there was no need for people to panic about the bill, and which we are all going to look at and then come back. Why are we talking about the water? Because you can't talk about agriculture and not talk about water. You will definitely have to talk about water. So these are some of the things that I think we must take a very proactive approach if we to avoid some of the issues that we're seeing.
kindly speak to us about the MAP program, which is Mass Agricultural Program. He has commended the initiative. So how many states are implementing it?
Well, let me tell you. First, I want to clarify some issues. When you are talking of prices, we are normally addressing the price of agricultural commodities. The prices of agricultural commodities are also affected by other prices. Inflation is a basket of prices ranging from manufactured goods to agriculture and some sort. The farmer that sells rice will buy clothes at a high price, will pay transportation cost at a high price, and several other things. So if you are talking of a price, you have to look at other aspects of the prices also. Coming to your question, under this COVID arrangement, there is a program in which the federal government has approved about 600 billion naira to assist small-scale farmers from 1 acre to 5 acres. Our estimate, this will cover about 2.4 million farmers. We have registered now closed about or even a little above 5 million farmers across the nation. We have cleared and cleaned about 1.3 million farmers, and we have handed it to CBN for funding. This is interest-free loan. And we have calculated per hectare or per acre, if you are producing maize, how much you will get, how you are going to pay, and under which arrangements you are going to pay. We are not going to give you cash. It is going to be in form of inputs, and the farmers will come under platform partners. These are major agricultural companies. Some of them already have their own farmers across the country, and they have been giving them assistance. And at the end of the day, they uptake what they produce after they take what they will eat for the year or whatever it is. So this program is there. Apart from that, there are other programs going on in the private sector. A lot of people have made investments in direct production of agricultural commodities. Most people don't know. Major companies have gone into agriculture. Take Dangote, Boa, Nestle. All they are involved in direct production of agricultural commodities. I was in Kebbi just about 4 or 5 days ago. I think I was there on last Saturday, just to witness this plan. There were some people that lost up to 3,000 to 4,000 hectares of rice that was about to be harvested. They have never seen such a devastation in terms of flood. The weeds stretched to about 47 kilometers, and the lands 267 kilometers, draining into the river Niger. All the planks, the banks, are rice, and that is gone. What do you do now? That will offer us an opportunity now. Disaster has come, there is nothing you can do about it. But how do you go about it? As the water is receding, we are advising farmers to plant early yielding varieties of rice, like what we call, I don't know what they call it in English. No, 444 is a little bit longer, but you have something like Kwandala, they call it in Hausa, just 90 days. You know, there is another one also of the same 90 days. And also, we are encouraging them to grow maize and wheat and sweet potato. That clearly will mitigate, will improve in mitigating the scarcity in the food system. And also, we are preparing them for the dry season farming. This is where the catch is. And we as government, we have to mobilize with necessary inputs to help these farmers affected by the flood to invest in dry season farming. And it's now my responsibility to make sure that that is done. Now I am mobilizing seeds from our research agencies. We are going to ask for intervention in the providing of the basic input like fertilizer and other associated items, so that at least we can help the farmers to boost their dry season farming. And that will have impact on rice, will have impact on maize.
Okay, well, Honorable Minister, but thank you very much. The points you just raised about Kebbi, incidentally, the Kebbi State Governor, when he was our guest about a fortnight ago, also touched on this. They have 3 cropping seasons for rice.
Yes.
He says, well, disaster has struck now with the floods, but they hope to recover as quickly as possible. And happily, you are saying that, of course, you will chip in with seeds. But I still would like you to clarify some points. One incident, of course, is not sufficient to make a generalized statement.
Yeah.
But recently, the federal government, in fact, the president, granted approval for the importation of maize. Maize. The 4 companies, yes.
The president didn't approve that.
Just hang on a second.
No, the president didn't approve that.
Four companies were granted waivers so that they could import maize because of the shortfall that the feed millers had complained about. And the customs were brought on board to say, look, yes, when these produce are being imported, they have the license already approved for them. So some person might then ask, if we have this availability, why this special dispensation, as it were? There's no special dispensation we are hearing now to say import so much for rice, but we are having that for maize. That's one. I also asked the governor of Plateau, perhaps of course, talked about a lot of things and therefore sidestep this issue. You say food is available, but affordability is a challenge, which is access. And the question I asked was, is there a dichotomy between rural and urban access to food or affordability? I'm sure many persons in urban areas who are watching this program today and you're saying food is available, they are likely to be scratching their heads and say, look, maybe they will come to your house to come and have their breakfast after you leave here and then have lunch and dinner as well.
They are invited. but let me clarify.
Yes.
The president didn't approve the importation of maize.
What happened?
One, it was the central bank that did it on its own, and the president raised hell out of it. Look, we have to understand, we don't need to import maize, we don't need to import rice. I know these have become political commodities because they are sensitive and they are largely used. And I sympathize with the poultry farmers. Their leaders came to me and I told them, look, this is a temporary inconvenience you have to bear. And they asked for government to help them with 10,000 metric tons of maize from our strategic reserve. I recommended 5,000 tons to be given to them, and the Mr. President graciously approved. We are just on the verge of distributing this. And mark you, whenever it is close to May, June, prices tend to go up. The reason is the farmers are trying to assess what is the trend of the rain of the summer. Once they saw the situation is stabilizing, they start bringing out their old stock. And because of this COVID, some major dealers of maize in particular, they hoarded. The hoarding overall is not much, but at least they did. I know this. So the issue is the challenge. There is this issue of access to foodstuff and also the ability to buy the foodstuff. Let me address the excess. There is no question about that. We are losing nearly 40% of the value of our agricultural product due to post-harvest losses. And that largely is arising because of excess from farmlands to urban centers. We are addressing this issue. Under the COVID stimulus, we are going to build about 268 kilometers of road, rural road across the country. And people, sometimes when you talk of rural roads, they think of letterize. I have stopped that. It has to be a third road. Because what happens is, if you give people contract, they go on letterized road, especially in the southern part of the country. After 1 year, you go and check, they say the rain has washed it. Okay, these roads are not built as seasonal roads. They are built to last for some years. And that's why now we are turning to building with the rural roads asphalted. Not only that, we are now in direct negotiation with some of the cement companies in the country to use concrete in building rural roads. Concrete roads, they last for 50 years. Asphalt, 15 years. So it is better for us to even pay more to build these concrete roads than to go and buy and build this asphalt road. I am planning that by God's grace, we are going to build around 300 kilometers of rural roads in the next coming year.
Okay. Are you doing this in isolation or in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor and Employment? Because there is 774,000 jobs for public works, and some of the rural roads have also been mentioned. So what's happening?
That is a different project altogether. It's a project of the Federal Ministry of Labor. They are a combination of so many things, but virtually we are all running and trying to achieve the same thing. This, the development, Ministry of Agriculture is Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Rural development entails rural roads, water supply, electricity. You know, if you if you are lucky, when your village may fall that way, you may give them solar powered energy, or water treatment plant, or boreholes. It's all part of the rural infrastructure. But roads is the main thing. So if we improve this access, definitely we are going to cut down on costs and also on the availability of food. Not only that, mark you, Nigeria is big and is large. The biggest mistake we made was to allow the railway system to collapse. If the white man, over 100 years ago, would thought it wise to build rail from Lagos to Ungru, then who are we to forget about it and lost it? If we can get the railway system on board, all the cost profile of agricultural commodities, of fuel, will just change for the better.
Okay.
I'm sure your brother, Minister Rotimi Amechi, will respond to you positively.
I hope he does.
What he just said,
Just a bit of clarification
Yes.
on the earlier question Kingsley asked you about the importation of maize. And you have said there was no approval given.
There was no approval from the president.
And indeed, we had the president, speak to that,
Yes.
that no more, reserves.
The president was angry.
But I'm wondering, can the CBN...
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So the licenses have not been revoked? Is that the case?
You ask a central bank.
All right.
Yes, because I'm wondering, can the CBN...
No, the issue is...
Sorry, sir, can the CBN arbitrarily grant importation waiver for over 260,000 tons of maize?
But they did. Go and ask them why.
And your office is not aware?
We didn't know. We were not aware. We were not aware. If I was aware, I will not allow it. I will not advise. Because I know it is a temporary thing. And mark you, we are competing against foreign countries in the agricultural sector. For goodness sake, you have all the facilities to produce maize and rice in this country. Why should we open ourselves to the importation of these commodities into this country? We are creating employment opportunities now. Let me tell you, before the closure of the border, most of rice milling plants in this country were epileptic. Okay, after the closure, what is happening now? In Kano, that's my state from where I come from, we have over 40 rice milling plants with a capacity of 100 tons per day up to 400 tons per day. In Bauchi, a new mill is being set up 600 tons per day. In Katsina, in Kebbi, in Lagos, everywhere, and these are creating employment opportunities for our youth. All this I'm talking about, they employ people between 200 to 300. And if you take smaller mills, clusters, they are in thousands. They are all fully occupied. In fact, part of the reason why the prices of fertile rice gone up because of the proliferation of these mills, and they were competing in purchasing, and in the process, those ugly speculators went into the system and started raising the prices of fertile rice.
Let's put you on hold for a minute.
Yeah.
We want to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does, Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. Dr. Tunde Arosonyi, of course, you've been listening to the minister and the governor of Plateau speak on some of the aspects of all of this. But let's get your own reaction to what is playing out. Yes, we know that there are a number of points in our food security mix that we need to connect. The governor of Plateau already articulated those points, and the Honorable Minister of Agriculture has also spoken about that. But when we say food security, classically, as we have indicated, 4 critical factors: availability, affordability, which is also referred to as access, utilization, whether it provides the requisite nutrition, and stability. To say, yes, you can say prices, there was a time in this country when for prolonged periods, food prices were stable. Food prices were stable. There's no question about it. I mean, I go to the market. I mean, my wife also goes to the market, and I'm sure that other persons also go to the market. And at some point, even the prices were crashing. But there's a clear acknowledgement that there are also other issues to contend with in the macroeconomic environment. What do we need to do to continue to enhance our food security? Not this question of saying food is available, but people cannot buy it.
Okay. Before I go directly into that answer, you raised an issue about the 4 companies that requested for waivers. With due respect, one of those companies was granted a similar waiver about 2 years ago, and I knew we raised a lot of pressure on government. The Honorable Minister was not yet on board then, and we complained bitterly that why must you allow a big company that is on the value chain to go and import? Because maize is one of the crops where we have comparative advantage in terms of production in Nigeria. Then we had suggested to most of those multinational companies that they should imbibe the culture of agro scheme. That was what Guinness and Nigerian breweries were doing in the 70s and 80s. A big company can identify over 2,000 farmers, index them, supply them with inputs from land preparation up to harvest, and then do a buyback. So that is how it can be sustainable. They have to complement whatever effort that government is trying to put in place. Now, looking at, but I'm so happy that the president has put a hold
No, the minister says the president expressed his anger.
Yes.
Well, he says we should find out from CBN whether those licenses have not been revoked. That's what you said, Honorable Minister.
Ask them. Ask them. It is interesting because the media has been on some of us to know our reaction as farmers, and we have complained bitterly that it's against the policy of encouraging local production. Because once government has taken the position to ban, to encourage local production, then there shouldn't be a double standard where you give a preferential treatment to some big players within the value chain. So, but I saw Mr. President on screen when, after the Food Security Council meeting, vehemently saying that if they have been granted, it must be stopped. But like the minister said, it will be good for the media to check. And the agencies of government that we have must be directed to comport with the acts of that establish them. I don't know the mandate that CBN has gotten in recent time to overlap into some other agencies. I had thought that the present government will fortify the Bank of Agriculture that has enough manpower in terms of the agricultural financing management in this country. But most of their schedule has been eroded by the central bank, which ordinarily should have been a general supervisor to the financial institutions. Now, looking at the critical 4 departments, we know at each stage there are gaps. His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, raised some germane issues at the first step, that is primary production. We all know that in all the 6 geopolitical zones there have been issues of security, but the hub of the grain production is mainly from the northwest, northeast to the middle belt, which we call North Central. And most farmers has actually been displaced, either because of banditry, because of insecurity issues. I know some of them, I met some of the farmers that are even doing farming under some irrigation scheme in Kwara and Kogi State presently. If you ask them, some of them are from Sokoto, some from Katsina, where there are the Federal Ministry of Water Resources have irrigation facilities and land. They have been displaced. So there's no doubt about that. Then to complicate the problem, the flooding that came in. I know I was here in 2012 when the issue of flood was so impactful, which affected the food production. So it's not going to be easy with all these challenges, and then the COVID that first restricted even movement of farmers that are not displaced by insecurity. It's good that the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Humanitarian are trying to address some of these issues by supporting farmers with some little palliative. But we must look at agriculture holistically along the value chain. If we want food production to be stable, to be affordable, and the prices, and then the prices to be stable. I remember when we had Professor Idachaba of blessed memory in the 80s. There's a standard tripod where the federal government then will produce with what we call control measure, have an hectare of sorghum, have an hectare of maize, and then do the economic analysis of input index and then the harvest to know at what price can the farmer sell to have what we call minimum guaranteed price. That one is no longer there. So if we have a similar program, the minister will be very comfortable to say, yes, if a farmer sells a ton of maize at 250,000, it's okay. Because he has given some prices, and like you said, if you subject comments from Nigerians, definitely most of them will not agree with some of the price index. Yes, we know we have challenges of rural roads and then link between the urban and rural centers. But the reality on ground is that even at the rural level, the prices have been very high. But I know of a feed miller that was in Kogi State about 2 weeks ago, scampering for maize and soybean, and the prices are just extremely high. But we hope gradually it may be able to come down. And for us, we must look beyond rain-fed. Rain-fed can no longer sustain a population that is growing geometrically, over 200 million. So that's why it's good that the ministry has indexed on farmers that will also be supported for dry season. And I believe most of these beautiful programs that have been laid out, if they are religiously pursued and supervised, and then with improvement on our security, definitely there should be an improvement on our food index.
Okay, thank you very much. But let's return to Enugu. Moses Nome, Commissioner for Agric and Natural Resources in Ebonyi State. Thank you. We've kept you for a while, but I'm sure you've enjoyed the exchanges from all the other guests in Jos and here with us in the Abuja studios. Just one point that I would also like you to speak to, and this is crucial in terms of evaluating the floods. We have had a number of programs on Good Morning Nigeria focusing on floods. One of the major challenges that the country has, according to the experts, has to do with efficient water management. They say that state governments are not fully utilizing the dams that are proximate to the areas of jurisdiction. So that if those dams were fully utilized or properly or optimally utilized, then when you have a rainy season like this, the dams will be able to impound more water and the overflow will be less and the flooding devastation would also be less. Opinion on this?
Well, I think that it's not all the states that have dams. Take, for instance, where I'm speaking from, in Ebonyi State, in Enugu State, I can't remember where is the dam here. And I actually wanted to address the question you threw before this. How do we sustain food availability in Nigeria? And that is where I was addressing my mind to talk about. Because here you are talking about dams, we don't have dams here. And so, what I think is that if the present food can be sustained in Nigeria, there must be mass development of lands, agricultural land development. In Ebonyi State, we have acquired over 70,000 hectares of land for development. On the 1st of this month, the governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer David Umai, inaugurated a 9-man committee on land development. What we intend to achieve? What we intend to achieve is to develop these lands that are acquired from local governments and deploy our youths, our young women, and even civil servants who we are encouraging with loans available to go to these farms and institutionalize farming in Ebonyi State. And we think if this is done, what is available now can be sustained, and that is where I think is the way to go. If we encourage our youths, the women, to go to the farm and give them incentives and give them encouragement by engaging off-takers to buy off what they are going to get from the farm, what we have now can be sustained. When we talk about the difference between the urban and the rural areas in terms of availability of food, it is because farmers are allowed for certain group of people. Everybody should be made to go to the farm because everybody eats. And if certain group of people are the people producing for the rest, then there will be scarcity as everybody is researching. But I think what we need to encourage in Nigeria is that everybody should go to the farm. And for when you talk about irrigation and dams, this part of the country doesn't have dams. And I think the Minister for Agriculture should make effort to move down what they have there up north to this side of the country, we need to have dams here to be able to go to the farms 3 or 2 times in a year, not to depend on rain-fed water. The flood, there are measures we can have and we can contain what the flood is doing. Like somebody said, those areas that are flood prone can be used from the months of October down to December at dry season farming. It is the duty of the agricultural extension officers, agents, to educate the farmers on the best approach to these ways, to these areas where there will be flood within a certain period of time of the year. Then if that is done, there will be 2 times farming in those areas, and anticipating crops should be used, should be applied in those areas. Like the rice, if rice is applied in some flood areas between the months of October and November, some rice will be matured by January and there will be no disaster on them. These are the things we need to educate our farmers to engage on, because the Bible says that men perish for lack of knowledge. Some of our farmers don't have the knowledge that you can actually devise a means of avoiding flood in certain areas and achieving what you need to achieve without having a problem with the flood. This is what I think, and these are the 2 things I think is major in sustaining availability of food in Nigeria. One.
All right, Moses, Norman, thank you very much there for the points that you have raised. I mean, when we were talking about fully utilizing the dams, I recall Tunde here with us in the studios did say that the country can no longer afford to rely solely or majorly on rain-fed agriculture. The fact that you don't have a dam in your place, it doesn't mean that canals cannot be built from the nearest. I don't know how near a dam is to your location, but we're discussing in general to see those locations that are not served directly by dams, canals can be built. That's one leg. And the other point you just made about everybody should go back to the farm. Every policeman should go back to the farm. Every military officer should go back to the farm. Every journalist should go back to the farm. We're also talking about mechanized agriculture. So what exactly do we need to do? These are critical points, but we appreciate what you have said. Claire.
All right, let's bring in the governor of Plateau State and, of course, the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum. When you have a problem or when you meet a brick wall, there are 1 or 3 things that you could do. Either you run away from it, you walk through it, or you find a way around it. So whether rain-fed agriculture or dry season farming, we must find a way of dealing with the issues. So how might we build resilience, to climate change, flooding, for instance? How might we build, develop ranching, for instance, that you have said? We can't run away from doing agriculture or farming. Otherwise, we will end up, hitting the state of emergency as been predicted.
Thank you very much. Let me also touch on the discussions you mentioned about the Honorable Minister said about this issue of granting waiver. I think it was very unfortunate when the deliberations came on the floor of the House, on the floor of the Council. The Council is the highest decision making. This is a council that is being headed by the President himself. I know Mr. President's passion for agriculture. And when this council was set up, consistently he has been emphasizing everything about agriculture. Now looking at it too, I've seen a lot of interventions, a lot of policy interventions that are produced for agriculture. Now, if at the end of the day, we follow judiciously to implement some of them, like the Honorable Minister of Agriculture mentioned, I think the issue of agriculture will take the front burner in this country. Without even moving people will be forced to go into agriculture. But the problem we saw in that place is that there is serious lack of synergy between the MDS themselves. Because if a decision like that was going to be made, you connect with the other sister ministries, you will arrive at a good decision. However, that was put on hold, and that was why Mr. President fled up and he was not happy with that decision. But not only synergy between MDS, but also there must be a connection between the federal government and the states, because all these farmers are found in the states. So we raised that. And before that, we were all going to get a decision, taking decision, but we put on hold some of these decisions. And we said, no, let us listen to the interventions from Bank of Industry, to the intervention from Bank of Agriculture, internal affairs, and that was why we didn't conclude on the meeting, and we suspended the meeting for full technical for a full technical session. So on these issues, I think when we look at the policies, very wonderful policies. The Honourable Minister spoke about development in lands. There's the introduction of RAM, rural agricultural, this is RAM. RAM, if you see RAM, in my state, when RAM came, we did it quickly, we embraced it, we put in our counterpart funds, and now we are ready to move on. By the time you move in some of these things, you will see the role of industry, Bank of Industries. You will now see the connect with the Bank of the investment aspect, and also where CBN is coming, and also the heavy intervention from Federal Ministry of Finance. The rest is security, and that security is going to be connected through National Security Advisor and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So what we are saying, what we are saying is that if we are focusing on it, let us be very, very serious, and that is why we should not, because part of my suggestion is that instead of waiting for a very long time to even hold a meeting, that meeting of National Security Council should be periodic, will be on a constant basis, because that council will be able to monitor, not only monitor but also evaluate, because agriculture will have to take the front burner, no longer oil, because we are moving into agriculture, and let agriculture take the front burner. Otherwise, we'll get to a place where we will not be able to employ people. It is agriculture that is heavily taking people off the street today. We say that because if you heard from the contributions from the zones, from governors, every governor was saying that it's agriculture that is helping him take people off the street. It's agriculture that is helping him engage people, civil servants, like we did in Plateau State. When we opened the big farm, I said, look, as a test case, civil servants must be given a portion. We have now cultivated a lot of places and we distributed it to the Nigerian Labour Congress. And we said, look, push your people. Somebody will get that kind of thing tomorrow. He will tell, even if he was not into farming, he will enjoy the benefit, the profit there. And you don't need to push him to come into agriculture. I'm a lawyer by profession, but since the day I started practicing law, I think I've done more of farming than even the law, because farming was also sustaining my legal practice, my legal practice. So as a journalist, if you start that, it will also help you, because everybody must come on board. So I would thank, I want to use the opportunity to thank, I've always been constant with the Minister of Agriculture. He knows that I don't leave him. For any little thing that is in Ministry of Agriculture, you will find governors now running up and down. Before they were all running to CBN, they will run to Minister of Petroleum. I don't go to Minister of Petroleum, although there is now petrol in my zone, there is petrol in my state. But the first thing is agriculture. And the more we get that kind of passion, and then we start talking about not only developing but implementing these policies that we have with good synergy and connection, we will not have problems in agriculture.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'll come to Plateau and see if I can acquire some land, and I'll be flying in from time to time to see what's going on in terms of production. I did a bit of agriculture, I recall, in school in those days, so we can put some of those ones into practice. Very quickly, Minister of Agriculture, we're out of time. I had asked the question about increased utilization of dams, even during the dry season, so that when the rains come, the impact of flooding will not be so devastating. If you want to respond to that very quickly. But 2 weeks ago, when the governor of Kebbi was here, I put this question to him. On the outskirts of the capital, that's Birnin Kebbi, there is a 100,000 metric ton silos owned by the federal government. Is it being put to use? He said no, that's the responsibility of the federal government. They're still bothering about whether to concession or not. It's been ready for many years now. What is the status?
Honorable Minister, in 60 seconds, I beg you.
Well, if you talk about the dams, to be honest with you, our dams are underutilized. Just let me give you an example of Tiga Dam. Tiga Dam was set up to irrigate 180,000 hectares across Kano, Jigawa, Yobe, part of Borno, and the part of Bauchi. We are still at about 22,000 hectares. And that we are talking of something over 40 years ago. And also the major problem of the existing dams, also, especially the major, they have been silting. You need to dredge them so that to improve the containment of water in them. And you take all the other dams across, there is that problem. It's a combination of the responsibility of the federal government, who owns most of these dams, and also the states. So it's very, very important. I think with regard to the silos that you are talking about, before I came, most of these silos have been concessed to private sector. And I believe the one in Kebbi, because we maintain one in each political zone. There is one in Zampara, Gusau, that is working perfectly, and we are using it. I think that one in Kebbi problem might have been concessed. I regret concessing this, but we are appraising those that do not meet the condition. We will take our silos back. Yes.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you. Just on time for us to say our goodbyes. Let's quickly appreciate our guest for today. Let me start from Ebonyi State, where we had Moses Nome, Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources, Ebonyi State. He joined us from our Enugu Network Center. We really appreciate your contribution. And also His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Plateau State and Chairman Northern Governors Forum, Dr. Simon Bako Lalonge. Let's say thank you very much for joining us today once again. And back here in our Abuja studio, let me appreciate Dr. Tunde Arusonyi, the Zero Coordinator, Zero Hunger Initiative. Thank you very much. And of course, not forgetting Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Mohamed Sabo Nanano. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for joining us. And that's it for today on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you. Do join us again same time tomorrow. I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Remember to take personal responsibility. Coronavirus isn't gone yet. See you tomorrow.